in the Lord Mayor's suite, but not with the Lord Mayor, with Sir Cliff Richard. Sir Cliff, hello.
Paul, hi.
What brings you to Birmingham?
Well, they very kindly asked me to switch the lights on, the Christmas lights on. I mean, I've always liked Christmas anyway, so it's nice to be part of it. And also, especially as I'm going to be, from the 15th of December, I'll be in Birmingham anyway, with my countdown concerts leading to the Millennium Night, and then I'm going to link hands with the Centenary Square crowd that will be here, and so I feel kind of part of the whole thing.
Now, of course, it's a huge event for the whole world, and a very big event for Christians. What does the Millennium mean to you?
Well, I'm not sure. You know, in the final analysis, it's another year, isn't it? But we are besotted by figures and numbers and times and decades and all that kind of thing, and people's ages. And the millennium is a counting of 2,000 years since Jesus. And so certainly as a Christian, it's like saying, okay, I know that we could be about 7 or 8 years out, you know, either premature or too late. But nevertheless, we've got a calendar, and we've lived this amount of time on the planet, marking it down on the calendar. So I shall be grateful that night, and it'll mean a lot to me. I think the millennium's going to mean a lot to everybody, even though at the moment there's a reaction against the whole thing because there's been such a hype swinging around. But in a way, we should be used to hype, shouldn't we?
As well as hype, as well as boosts, there are knocks in the record business.
Oh, yeah.
And there have been times in your career when there have been various new movements, when, say, you know, punk rock happened, or when things changed in the 80s or the 90s, and people say, well, you know, Cliff Richard, that's from the past. Cliff Richard, he's not going to be in the charts again. Now, it looks like Sunday is going to be a big day for you. You could be in, according to figures this week, in the top 5. How does that feel? Are you still excited by that?
Yeah, well, when they told me earlier, I did scream quite a bit in the office, and they all laughed, because I can't help it. But the predictions can be wrong. You know, they predict it might be in the top 5, and you get all excited, and then come Sunday, it's 55, and you think, oh dear, I've gone down. Rather than think, I've come in at 55, the prediction makes you think one thing, and then sometimes if it doesn't come out right, you're disappointed. So I'm just going to try and keep calm, and I know that the response has been terrific, and just hope for the best.
Now, that sounds like too much of a creep. You've got a very special place in British showbiz, in the history of our entertainment, in the history of rock music, and that means you're the subject of an incredible amount of focus and attention. And the thing you've just been talking about there is almost part of it, that if you come in at 55, most people come in at 55, that will be a triumph for them. But people might say, is Cliff slipping? If you come in at number 5, they'll say, is this the last big one? Does that level of attention ever get you down?
No, I mean, I like the level of attention because, I mean, that's why I'm in the business. You know, I don't know what new artists think, but when I first headed into show business, I wanted to be recognized, I wanted to be as important as I could be. I do get the feeling sometimes that my success and my persona gets up some people's noses, and I don't know why. I mean, I'm basically just a nice bloke. I just am very lucky to be singing rock and roll. I hope I don't make enemies. And yet sometimes when I read things about myself, I think, crumbs, what have I done? I've just made a very nice record, thank you very much.
Does that still get you, though? Do you ever get upset by that, or can you just brush that off?
No, I can't brush it off. I try to brush it off. I say I brush it off, but in fact it hurts still. And I think it's because, you know, if I can quote Kenneth Branagh, who will never remember telling me this, but he did. I said to him when I was getting a real hard time during Heathcliff, wouldn't it be great to grow a thick skin of armour, an armour of skin, so that people could say what they liked about you, could go. And he said, no, don't wish for that. He said, because we are artists, because we have thin skins and we're incredibly sensitive. And he said, you would lose a lot as a person if you ever became like that. And I thought, he's right. So now I'm thinking, okay, I'll put up with it, but it still hurts.
Again, one of the many press stories recently has been that you might be playing one of the ultimate baddies, Dracula, on stage.
Gary Oldman played a great Dracula. When I saw that film, it's the first time I ever felt sorry for Dracula. It wasn't just, oh, you know, and all that, and bosoms and things, you know. It was, I mean, it had that as well, but the story was about a man who was sent into purgatory, really, for 200 years. And it turned out that he was looking for that soulmate that he'd lost. And he found her. And they were so in love with each other. She wanted him. She said, come on, bite me so I can be like you. And because she loved him so much. He said, I love you so much, I can't put you through this, and wouldn't do it. But he said, but if you really love me, you're going to have to cut my head off. And she loved him so much she did. And I thought, this is an unbelievable love story.
It is not you tell it, Cliff.
Well, it's more of a love story than Heathcliff, really, isn't it? Because it was their love. And the only way she could show her love was to free the person she loved from this purgatory. And so when somebody asked me, I thought, I'd make a pretty good Dracula. Because the thing about Dracula is everyone thinks, you know, ugly, vicious. But in point of fact, some of the nastiest people can look quite normal.
Well, if we can stay wired for sound, Sir Cliff, we're going to take a breather, back more with Sir Cliff, well, darkened Birmingham, and we've been talking about earlier about what's been in the papers about you recently, the controversy about the single not being played on the radio, then the news it could be charting on Sunday very high up. The other thing that's been in the newspapers is that you may be taking a year off and just taking a breather and reconsidering things. How true is that?
That's very true. What I'm not doing is taking a bus around India. I've read that somewhere, and I'm not going to spend the whole year in Australia either. But I'd said that...
So you mean you and the gang from summer holiday aren't going to get on that big red bus and go around India and Australia?
No, but it might be a good time to get together. I always find it so hard to have reunions because there's no time. Everybody's working and busy. It might be a good time to... Thanks for reminding me, because I must get in touch with all.
So you've mentioned work there, and that's one of the images I have of you, is somebody sustained by their faith and very focused on their work. Has that meant that you feel you've sacrificed things to maintain that kind of focus?
I don't know. Sacrifice is such a strong word for what people like me do. We have so much given to us to balance it up that it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. Yeah, I suppose we give up the right to privacy. Well, no, well, not the right to it, but the possibility of getting it. It gets harder and harder to have privacy. The more profile you have, the more people write about you. If I want to have a really quiet holiday, I go to America. They really don't know me there on the whole. If I go to New York, the only people that recognize me are foreigners. And once the Bee Gees, who stopped their car and offered me a lift.
Now, of course, you've got the single out, The Millennium Prayer, and we wish you well with that. And it's bound to chart. I know you don't want to be too positive about how high up it's going to go.
I'll wait.
But when you look back over the last 100 years, say, do you feel positive or negative about humanity? Because this century has seen some dreadful, there's been genocide, there have been natural disasters. Do you feel mankind is in trouble?
I'm optimistic, though, as a Christian, because I know that ultimately God is in charge. Sometimes you have to question, oh, how can this happen? And you want to say, God, how can this happen? Because you can't ask a scientist that, or even your friends, because they don't know how it happened either. So you turn to him, and I don't think he minds us getting a bit angry with him. I mean, he's big enough to take it.
So when was the last time you got angry with God, then?
When Jill Danda got married. I mean, you know, it was really a frustrating time for everybody in the nation, let alone those of us who knew her quite well. And I found myself saying, God, this is ridiculous. This is a beautiful woman who, I mean, none of us, when we were talking to the police, they said to me, the one thing that's come through is that none of you seem to be able to know anybody that disliked her, let alone hated her enough to kill her. So that was the last time, really. But you can rail at God. I remember reading a book years ago called Angry with God, and it was saying, don't be frightened to be angry with him. It's part of being human. We're frustrated and we need to vent it out on something. And rather than start a war or go and kill somebody, get angry with God. He can take it. You may not get the answer you want, though, from God all the time. That's the main thing. Although I don't know why Jill should have died that way. All I know is, for certain, is that God gave all of us the choice of good and evil. And that guy or woman chose to do evil that day. Exercised his choice. And I really hope they get him. But that was the last time I was angry with him.
I wonder how religious a country you still think we are, given that there was a survey recently which said that after Jesus, you were the best-known religious figure in the country.
Well, I mean, I don't know. We are a religious country, but we're a splintered one, aren't we? We're a multicultural society now. There are, I don't know how many different faiths and philosophies, and what we have to do, if we're going to be true to humanity, to being even just humanists, is recognize that we're all different and accept each other. I felt comfortable doing the Millennium Prayer because I thought, if I want a theme for the Millennium, this would be the best one. Because it can't offend anybody when it's not specifically Christian. Okay, it happened to be Christians that first used it, but it's praying to this God that Muslims, Buddhists, Jewish people are all trying to reach, and it's asking for food, it's asking for protection from evil, it's asking for the power to forgive people and have them forgive us. If it doesn't make number one, it doesn't matter. It was still a valid thing for me to do.
Well, it's certainly going to chart. We appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for that. And an astonishing thought, you're in the chart in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I reckon you're going to be in the chart in the year 2000 with the Millennium Prayer. Thank you, Sir Cliff Richard.
Thank you.
Here it is, the Millennium Prayer.